Okay.
Hello, everybody. I'm Stanley Smith, and this is Marcy Carmack. Welcome to Fashion Coffee Hour. And today we've got Michael Ward, and I described him, I hope it was correct, as a fashion industry insider. He's going to give us a scoop on where the fashion industry is yesterday and today. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Happy to be here.
Well, and we'll talk a little bit about his career before we get to before and after. Um, I met Michael 30 years ago in New York when we worked for Carmelo Pomodoro.
When you were 12 years old?
Yes. So it was
Kind
very
of.
exciting. What?
It was my very first job. So
Yeah.
19.
Yeah, he was very fresh faced and very ambitious and still is today. And I was telling Stanley that when I think of you, I think of someone that is in pursuit of excellence.
That's very nice. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we had a lot of good memories together. It was our first job. So my first job, and it was the first time that we had met. And we had a lot of very good memories. It was an amazing opportunity. So I think the time at Carmelo Pomodoro holds a special place in our hearts and a lot of people that were there with us for the ride. So
Yeah, Carmelo Pomodoro was a rising star in the 90s. Well, I wasn't there until 89, same time as you, but he had been sort of on the rise in the late 80s. And he died of AIDS,
yeah.
which is very sad.
And what type of designer was he? Was he leather goods, shoes, or was he fashion? What was he?
He was a true sportswear designer.
Let's work.
We did shoes just for the shows only, I believe, with Manolo Blahnik, which was insane, which was a wonderful opportunity. He did outerwear, but it was primarily a collection-based fashion label. So yeah, very like Michael Kors and that world at the time.
Terrific.
Yeah.
So then, so our jobs were sort of cut short and we had to move on. And Michael worked for a lot of different designers. If you want to name a few.
Right after Carmelo, I was lucky enough to meet with people like Adrienne Vittadini, who you worked for, Marcy. She took me and met with me to see how I was as a young assistant without now the job. And I also met with Stan Herman, who was the president of the CFDA at the time. And I ended up working with Stan, for Stan, a little while until I found a job. I believe the job I took next was at Burberry with another beautiful person named Marianne Restivo. And I worked at Burberry. I worked for Anne Klein. I worked for a company called Episode, which was a global retailer like an Ann Taylor, but globally. And I worked for Rachel Zoe, which was super fun. And I worked for, my last job was at Diane von Furstenberg. And after Diane von Furstenberg, I decided, what am I waiting for? I've always wanted to try this. So came up with a idea of what we felt was kind of void in the market and what we wanted to do with our time and talent. And we came up with Salting, the brand, The Salting, which is now what I do full time.
And what was the void in the market?
Well, actually, the conversation at the time that was most exciting was the idea of unisex and the idea of clothing that can be shared by both genders, that there doesn't need to be primarily a script of how a woman should look and wear and the psychology behind it. And we wanted to kind of flip the script a little bit and create a vocabulary of items that we all share. And it's not a political statement. It was just a new way of thinking and approaching design. And I think it's really working. I think it's a little overused term now. So we really don't even use the word unisex anymore. In the last couple of years, we don't even don't enjoy saying that as much as I do saying it's, inclusive and it's for men and women, both male and female. It's a little easier. So
Inclusive is good because we did debate about unisex if it was still a current term, and we thought it was, but I like inclusive better.
it might be current. It just didn't feel, it became so played out so fast, and that's not what the brand's about. The brand's not about a quick trend.
Mhm.
So for that reason, we just enjoyed saying that it's for men and women. It's inclusive. It's for everybody.
And then you're the lead designer for this new brand?
Yeah, I started the brand with a business partner who's still the co-founder. It's another designer, Michael Smaldone, who's an incredible person. And so he and I are the co-founders of the brand. And once the business found its legs, my very talented designer husband joined the brand from Calvin Klein. So right now it's my husband and myself at the helm. And Michael Smaldone remains the co-founder. So both my husband Manal and I design. We do everything. So
And then your previous roles for the other designers, you were an assistant designer, or what were you actually doing? You were interpreting designs or having to make sure they get manufactured, or what were you doing?
always in design, always. So, and then that varies from company to company, how much responsibility you have. So at a smaller brand like at Carmelo, I was responsible for all, sorry about that. I was responsible for all fabrications, ordering the fabrics myself, the sample fabrics, the yarns, doing the sweaters and knitwear, trim. And then the larger the company, you have more people doing
You
that.
did wonderful sketches at Carmelo.
Thank you.
So there would be a design and you'd be in charge of working to get it fabricated and resource and making sure that it was all put together and selecting the fabrics to make it happen, to realize it.
Yeah, and fortunately for the bulk of my career, the brands I worked with, we had an in-house pattern room. So you're working directly with pattern makers. So the process is very different than doing a tech pack based business where you're doing a tech pack to send out to another factory outside of the country to produce. So every brand has its own rhythm and formula. So
Is it hard to find good pattern makers today?
yes. My husband Manal is now responsible for that. So he's capable of very capable to do the pattern work. So that's sort of his responsibility now. So we create the brand, we create the designs, and he can build them. So
Remember our wonderful pattern maker at Carmelo?
yes, I do. He also works with us sometimes.
He does?
He does.
I thought you couldn't get a hold of him anymore.
Yeah. He does from time to time, and it's super special for me personally to be able to still work with him. His name's Gregory. So
Gregory was the pattern maker for
Carmelo Pomodoro.
no, but
Oh, sorry.
the other designer that I just forgot.
Bob Mackey.
Bob Mackey.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So he really goes way back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
Well,
You can
tell
have
him
such
I said
longevity.
hello.
I will, I promise.
It's great that you can have such longevity in the business.
Like me personally?
No, with a pattern maker, that's awesome.
The pattern maker, yes. Yeah.
Great legacy, really.
It's important. It means something in the journey of your career. It means something to me. So I
You
do my
value
best to
it.
treasure it and value it. Yeah, for what it is.
Yeah.
So
Well, Marcy,
Now-
what's your burning questions? What are your burning
I
questions?
don't know. Well, I'm curious how you came up with the name assaulting.
basically when we first started the idea of unisex, we went down a very like clinical name exploration. So numbers, numeric, 1, 2, 3, but everything sounded familiar and it sounded like something else that someone did, or it didn't feel as special. And I come up with the idea of the element of salt or salty, and at the time that became a big like, yes, let's go there. And trademarking salt or trademarking anything with the word salt suddenly became a legal weight. And I just explored and discovered the word salting. And salting is the notion of the ocean coming up on washing the shores and coating it with a layer of salt. So it's a nurturing thought. It's a vision that everyone can have in their head of just beautiful soft waves enveloping our planet. And that's assaulting. And so when thinking of a name, I thought to put the in front of it. In our social media world, there became this whole wave of, the sartorialist, the bearded publicist, people were just doing that. So I thought of the salting, and suddenly it took on another world of its own that it could lead any person to imagine. It could be the name of a rock band, a horror film, a poem, an 18th century, story. So it felt right. It was the right thing. And then suddenly your energy stopped and we were done with the search. And then legally it was very easy. Like no one had the salting. So that was an easy.
I love the image of the waves,
Yeah.
and the salting the sand.
But now when you describe it, I think it could be a Stephen King novel.
Right. But I like that. I like that a lot about it. And always will, that there's a flexibility factor, which is important, I think, in fashion for all of us as consumers of anything. I think there's the idea of unknown that still exists within the salting that I love a lot. That it can be anything. Like it's, first of all, it's our brand. But secondly, it can be anything. So
anything, and anyone can embody it. Right?
Yes.
Any of your clients can.
Yeah. As a women's wear designer, I've always done a certain thing. I've danced a certain dance. And the same thing with Manel. We've been in a specific lane. And now with the salting, we really can talk to anyone and meet anyone and hope that you're already your established person. You're already who you are. And hopefully you would find something within our world or collection that you'll enjoy. And it's as simple as that. And it takes away what I don't care for about in fashion. It just keeps the joy of the craft of making beautiful clothing first and foremost. So.
Well, my burning questions are, I have two burning questions. And that one is, do you think the opportunities that you and Marcy had early on, do you think those still exist in the industry, or they're becoming more rare? And my other question, burning question is, we had Dolce & Gabbana. We did a show about them a couple of weeks ago, and Marcy pointed out that they always have a waist, like that's part of their thing, is part of the feminine form. So in your brand, which is more inclusive, do you have a waist or you don't have a waist? Like, is there some sort of a key element that is indicative of your brand? So the opportunity question, and then what's indicative of your brand visually?
I think it's important for me to remind myself that opportunities always exist and they're always in front of us. And so I 100% think that they are. And I think if people have the right attitude, talent, skill, I love the thought of that. And that's important to me. So I don't want to lose hope of that.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
That's good.
But even for me,
always very positive.
But I need to believe that. If I didn't believe that, this chapter of my life, I want to believe that. So, and I do. I do think that the rules have changed, the game has changed, but even, for example, thinking to start a fashion brand today is a daunting task. So the way we went about it is the opposite of what you should do. And then therefore we found our space. And therefore we don't want to consider the brand a fashion brand. We want to consider it a lifestyle brand, a clothing brand. It's a business. And I like thinking of it that way, that the industry's changed and grown, and we're becoming hyper aware now of the damages that we're doing in the planet. And so it's such a vast question, but within our world, you can find your lane and a voice, and there's an audience for it, I think. And then Dolce & Gabbana, I think many brands celebrate the waist. I worked for Diane von Furstenberg, and I think that, it's super important in the wrap dress, the idea of the wrap and tightening at the waist. And I think I celebrate that, and then I don't think that should or would ever go away. However, for the salting, when we step toward the idea of unisex, we're not going to do that. That's not our language. But beautiful clothing is our language, like a beautiful coat without shape. And we're not heavy into the tailoring aspect. Like, we're more about ease in our cut, and therefore it does talk to more people. Where Dolce & Gabbana is a beautiful Alaya. There are so many companies that are geared toward a beautifully tailored armhole, sleeve, shoulder, waist, how it curves the human form, and ours is cut more toward beautiful fabric and how it can lay in a different way. So, but we do belts, like we'll offer a belt in the spirit of, if you want to have a waist, here's an option. So,
And would you see, I would probably put the belt around the jacket. Do you suggest that, or it's just up to the customer?
we have a belted trench coat. We do belted trench coats, and what we do is like almost a double loop. So if you're more of a high-waisted or low-waisted, depending on the anatomy of attempting to even dress the both of you, just assuming it might not apply with Marcy because you do have the height, but a male torso is a little bit longer traditionally than a female torso. So we do the belt loops on the side that you can put the belt higher or lower and get that bathrobe coat feel, and you can still cinch it in if you want. So, yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned the male torso being longer. Do you think women have longer legs and men have shorter legs? I never thought about it, but is that part of that? Like, men have more of their height in their torso and less in their legs sometimes, and it's
No, that
Long legs run in my family. My uncle had very long legs.
yeah, I don't think legs itself is more of a gender thing, but people come in all shapes and sizes. So I think what we're doing is crazy because we want to try to dress so many people, but you find the language and the fit and the cut and the style that is friendly to this. So I don't think we'll do dresses. Like that word doesn't apply to us. A blouse doesn't apply to our brand. But sweatshirts, trousers, coats, tunics, popovers, shirts. There's so many sweaters. There's so many words that in the vocabulary that we share, that genders share. And that's where we find our
Sweet spot.
And speaking of finding it, where do people find your brand? Is it in department stores, pop-up?
We're now in 30 stores in the US and Canada, which is incredible. And we're in Bergdorf Goodman. So we just shipped Bergdorf's for the first time in 2022, which was a huge milestone. And we're humbled. We have a website, thesalting.com, and we also actively do trunk shows. So our business is now, that's how you can make money. So we've explored all three equally. So we're building our wholesale business nicely, not too fast, not too, and then we have a website, again, the same thing, slow and steady. And then we do trunk shows.
Are the trunk shows featured prominently on your website? Because one of our viewers mentioned that right away, the trunk shows. And we were kind of blindsided because we didn't know trunk shows were a predominant part of your business. Is that featured in the website?
Yes, like if we're having one, it's part of, it becomes a post like in real time. So if we're going somewhere the week prior, we'll start sharing that with our world. So you can just see them in real time throughout the gallery.
Terrific.
So, and we just did kind of an exaggerated trunk show this entire summer in the North Fork of Long Island. We had done pop-ups on the North Fork at this one space with our partners, Lumber and Salt, like our friends at Lumber and Salt.
What
and
is
then we
that,
approached
Michael?
them.
Lumber and Salt.
Lumber and Salt is it's a destination on the North Fork where people can go, and they have vintage furniture and vintage findings and chairs and boat parts and anything and everything. And it's this amazing resource that people go to kind of shop and look for anything, find objects and vintage pieces, furniture and interiors and things like that. And it's called Lumber and Salt. So they approached us and said hello, which led to us doing an event together and doing a trunk show there. And it was very successful, and we were embraced by the North Fork community. And so this summer we approached them and asked if we could do an extended trunk show. So we're there through Labor Day, and we brought in 15 other small businesses, small vendors. We're the clothing, and then we brought in artists, photographers, authors, jewelry makers, local, ceramicists. And so it became this destination that you can shop. And it's this beautiful barn that they've erected. And it's exquisite. And now we're extending through October 15th for the fall. So we're going to bring our fall collection there. And then
now, how can, with a small business, how can you man that? How can you be, can you?
It's open Saturdays and Sundays. So we were open Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And from this point forward, we're open Saturdays and Sundays. So the team at Lumber and Salt and our team, we work it together. So, and there's a spirit of everyone growing, everyone there. It's everyone wanting to succeed and support one another. So that's what we're about. I love it. So we were able to cast that net, and yeah, it's working. And again, that wasn't in our business plan in the beginning. And you find, and if something's easy, we gravitate toward it when the communication's clear and the trust is there, makes it a lot easier. So, and instead of Manel and I going from trunk show to trunk show, we would do them in beautiful properties, very fortunate. It's very nice being in one place. So, and then we'll see.
And how far is that from where you grew up? Not that far, is it?
It's not that
pretty far out.
It's not that far, but the North Fork is pretty far out. So we have a home in Belport, and it's about a 35-minute drive, which is great on Long Island driving terms.
Michael, I love the part about how you have to believe there's opportunities for you to continue on. I think that's such a great positive message that we do have choices. We can choose to believe for the good. So that's a really good message.
Yeah, I have to believe it. I have to believe it. And it helps. And it also helps that there doesn't, you can create your own set of rules, and I like the flexibility factor of what we're doing. And as owners, we can pull back, you can pull back, gravitate towards something else, see what works and grow that area, and what's not working and minimize it. So we have the power to do that.
Definitely hear the flexibility, especially the idea that you can I like the part about how you mentioned how if it seems like it's easy, seems like it's resonating, you follow that path. That seems very smart. I know some of our people tonight were going to ask, about your thoughts about the future and where we're going. And a lot of people have really hard, fast concerns about the business climate for fashion and for the whole industry. And I know we're going to get into that tonight, but you have a very positive outlook. So people are doing well in the industry. You're doing well, and they're finding their niche, and they're not hitting the wall. You're not hitting the wall. You're finding your way.
I think my age is a factor in that I've done this enough, and you can see other brands succeed or fail and why, and knowing what I have in front of me, and helped me formulate the path. So, and I think I've learned enough, like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to, you can gravitate toward your own experience to make the decisions.
So being a seasoned professional definitely has its advantages.
Yeah, I hit 50 and I was like, what am I waiting for? Like, what am I waiting for? Like, no one's going to come and give me this perfect opportunity. And when you're working for another designer, it is challenging um, to design clothing
Yeah,
for
it's an opportunity and a challenge. And at some point, you need to make the break. And
yeah.
you're absolutely right. We all in our lives need to think, what am I waiting for? And get it together and take a stab at it.
I grew knowing that there's a lot of money and capital necessary to launch a brand, and that was always my excuse. I didn't have that. I don't come from that, and that was always my excuse. But I did have a very beautiful big career, and I don't know why. It just after Diane von Furstenberg, I was the interim creative director. I couldn't have been any higher. It was an amazing experience, and I was like, what am I waiting for? I think I can do this. And as a designer, many creatives are insecure. I fall into that. And I just took a big leap and came up with this concept that felt special and something that I wanted to do. A lot of my friends, when you're approaching 50, and we're talking about a daunting industry. So if you're having another open panel discussion tonight about the future of fashion, right? It already sounds bleak. So, like it's so daunting and it's impossible to succeed in how and why. However, and same thing for my husband. We went to school, we studied fashion. It's what we do, it's our craft. So could I open a bed and breakfast? Could I go into interiors? Could I express another love or passion that I have? Sure. But I didn't want the industry to ruin my love for fashion that I had at 15. Like I still have that. I can still hold on to that. That's mine. And finding my path. And we didn't make it a path that we will fail. That's, I think, I'm not setting myself up to be the next anybody. And we don't want to be, we don't, I think if you choose to be like the next, you mentioned Dolce Gabbana, it's in my head. Like, I'm not setting up to be the next Dolce Gabbana. Like, I don't want to do that to myself. That feels, daunting. But we can make beautiful clothing for people and then go from there. So.
Excellent. Well, when we get in it this evening, we'll try to stay positive. We appreciate those takeaways. And I love the part about how you didn't want the industry to destroy your love and passion for fashion. That's really, you can say that about any industry because it's easy to get disillusioned, and that's not really a winning path.
Right.
So
and it's also important to know that it's just as challenging in any industry. It has its positives and negatives. So the chats we're having this in our industry, it's in any industry, in publishing, in the world of any other industry has.
Well, and especially in New York, it's just so competitive in every field. And but it's no longer as important to be in New York. I mean, people have fashion careers out of New York these days.
Right.
And what else was I going to say? Don't you think that this ability, you go different paths based on what's happening in the market? I mean, that wasn't available to us at Carmelo. It's
right. Like, I don't think I could have had a business like Carmelo's with that formula. There's a lot of capital needed, a lot of connections needed. So, it was
what I meant really is that what I meant is that those businesses of yesteryear were not as nimble as you are. They didn't have the ability to change courses easily as you can online. And I mean,
True.
You had to be in New York back
True.
then, and you just couldn't, it wasn't as fast, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's
very product oriented, weren't they, Marcy? Product oriented. They're very, I mean, I think of Diane von Furstenberg. I mean, she was the wrap dress. I mean, whether she wanted to be or not, that's what she just became a thing. And a lot of houses became a product. So Michael's probably more of a concept or a lifestyle, which I guess that's an old idea, but you're more of conceptual than you are product. So that makes you more flexible.
Yeah. I just think that the potential, I just love the idea that there's potential. And then through the brand, we've done a lot of collaborations. And it gives us the opportunity to do collaborations with different people. So, and to celebrate them and to not just make one product over and over again, but to talk with a ceramicist and share color palette with them and our philosophy and see what we would come up with together, but really letting them take the reign and saying, I really love this about your brand. I love that. We say we're raw and refined. So to apply just those words to ceramics or to apply those words to jewelry is lovely. Like I love that idea. So, and then we always say you've been salted. So like it was just, it's been a very clever, joyful experience, which I think is important in life. Like it's important. We don't want to be elitist or, you know, I don't want to go down that road. So
Thank you, Michael. You know, yeah, we don't mind being assaulted now and then, and this has been a pleasure. And I do want to just make a plug for our program this evening. We will be inviting everybody back this evening to Fashion Coffee Hour at 6 p.m. Central Time. If you want to join us, we'll include the email in the description of the video, and we'll be happy to send you an invitation. Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you for joining us.
thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thanks,
Take care.
Michael. Great
Bye,
to see you.